Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to the inaugural, the debut episode here of Talking the Tightrope. This will be an interview series I'm going to be doing. Primarily at the beginning, it's going to be for the Kickstarter campaign for my series Apotheosis. But whether the campaign succeeds or not, this series will be continuing so we can talk about what's going on in web and television and movie media. These are, at the beginning, are not going to get a lot of live views. That's perfectly fine. The biggest thing right now is to archive these, so that way we have interviews with the people involved with our show to let you know why you should donate and or care about it in the first place. Because really, before anyone donates any money, it's more about getting you to give a crap about the story we're trying to tell. Otherwise, what's the point? Joining me this evening is Ms. Allison Vanore. She is my Los Angeles general. She's the producer of the LA side. Apotheosis is telling two sides of the same story, and one of those sides involves a cast that is based out of Los Angeles. Out of people that I've wanted to work with, out of people that I admire, one of those people, on both accounts, is definitely Miss Allison. And then the other half of the story takes place in my backyard, as I live in Southeast Michigan, which, if you're watching in Los Angeles, you'll probably know as where? Yeah, it's a flyover state. You don't care. You really don't care. We're going to try to make it work. And it's going to start tonight with my guest, Allison Vanore. Welcome, Allison, to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
How's everything going for you tonight?
Everything is good. It's been a long day, running around doing lots of different things. So, I'm happy to be home and chatting with you guys.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on my first episode.
Of course, of course.
All right, so let's start with the basics when it comes to being the producer. Tell me your definition of being a producer, because it can be a very vacuous term. Like, everyone knows what the director does. Everyone knows what the writer does. There's a pretty much explanatory for whatever position is in there. And then when we get to the producer, it gets a little murky, and usually it's I do a shit ton of things.
Well, it's basically the case, right?
It's basically the case, but let's let the audience know exactly what type of things are involved.
Sure.
What does Allison do when she's working as producer for these productions?
I order people around. No. No, I'm kidding.
But you're honest.
No. Really, when you're talking about indie productions, for the most part, are producers doing everything that needs to be done. So if we don't have a location manager, I'm looking for locations. If we don't have a catering company, then I'm ordering lunch and making sure people are fed. But really, what it comes down to is it's kind of all the work on the ground, and coming up with a schedule and a budget and basically a game plan for how we're going to make everything work, from pre-production to production to wrapping it out and even post-production as needed. So really my job is to make sure that this gets made and we have a finished product at the end. So it's the business side of things, whereas the director's doing this exact same thing from a creative standpoint.
Yeah, it's all the nuts and bolts the director basically can't be busy with when he's actually leading actors and trying to get the performances on camera. Exactly.
And that's not to say that producers are not creative people as well, but it's kind of, they complement each other. So, while a producer's running around doing a bunch of things, so is the director. And, hopefully you've got a really talented team to do all those crazy things with us.
Hey, and that's what it's all about. Now, the difference, there's producer, and then sometimes people will see the executive producer. If I'm correct, and there's always the jokes that the executive producer does nothing, or the executive producer is a name and title only. Would it be fair to say that an executive producer is usually either the person who had the resources or influence to bring something about?
Yeah, basically. Sorry, if you see this little ear popping up, it's because my dog is sitting on my lap and he's trying to get my attention.
More, just give us all the views.
Yes, yeah. So we use puppies, right? We use puppies to try to get people to pay attention to us. Here we go.
My
Oh.
my cat's demands are too high, or else I would let it appear, but it just wants too much. It just
No,
wants too damn much.
exactly. So Fitz, say hello to everybody. Say hello, hello. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Um, but yeah, so in terms of an executive producer, really, when it comes down to it, an executive producer is the person who, or maybe sometimes multiple people, who are really the reason why this project is going to get made. So either they're the person that found the script or came up with a concept and hired someone to write a script, and or put the financing together, or put the business plan together to actually go out and raise the financing. I mean, they're really the ones that are there at the inception of the project, and they're at the end hopefully reaping the benefits of the project when it finally sells and makes millions of dollars. And there can be many different types of producers, but that's kind of generally what an executive producer is. So it doesn't mean they put in the money, but they are
There, I don't know if that'll translate to the Hangout on YouTube or not, but you did break up a little bit there. Could you repeat the last little bit?
yeah, just that, the executive producer is, responsible for getting the project off the ground. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they are bringing in money, but they are putting the package together that is necessary to bring the money into the project and make it happen.
Yeah, okay, so to use Lost as an example, J.J. Abrams is the one that got the idea off the ground and the authorization to make it, but it was actually Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse as the producers who actually created the show on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly.
All right, excellent. That's a big thing, 'cause, I mean, producing is the reason why you're able to pull off all the other stuff, which was really, when you're like a kid, when you're younger, you're watching movies or you don't understand how the business aspect works. It's always kind of vacuous. And like on shows, especially comedies, the producer is usually some wacky stereotype, like smoking a cigar and being a douchebag or something. But it's just, it's good to let people know the legit involved with this system. And yeah, maybe I do smoke cigars and act like a douchebag and wear a leisure suit, but I still get work done while I do it, and that's the key.
Well, I think a lot of the times what ends up happening, especially for productions that I work on, is really a lot of the stuff that I do, in addition to all of the producing stuff, is more like a line producer and production manager. So most of that, a lot of work happens before we even get to set. So a lot of those people who, crew members or cast an understanding of what goes into producing, really a huge bulk of my work happens before we even get right. So by the time we get to actually shooting, half of my job is already over, and now I'm making sure that things flowing properly, and I'm putting out fires as they pop up. Whereas if I've done my preparation and all that work leading up to it, there's not a ton of things that I'm running around doing at this point. So that's why I'm able to smoke my cigars and sip my martinis.
That's awesome. Now we know Allison Vanore smokes cigars and sip martinis on the job. Great. That's what I like to know. That's what, now I know what to expect, and I know what I should be doing over here.
It's in my contract. You didn't.
I know.
You read the fine print.
over here in Michigan, I'm smoking candy cigarettes and eating Subway sandwiches. I mean, that's the best that I can aspire to, if we're gonna be honest.
Okay. Well, it's all relative.
It's the price indexes. Like, Jesus, everything's so expensive in LA that candy cigarette and Subway sandwich are gonna be. So here's a little bit of why I picked Allison to be the producer for the Los Angeles side. Really what it comes down to is she has an extensive list of credits. The first work I became familiar with that she had produced was actually Solo, the series. And that was a really fun story with John Nail being shot into space as a reality show, and they couldn't get him back home. That was the first time I'd actually seen work that she had started to produce. And her current work, her most recent works are shows and movies such as Love in the Time of Monsters, producing Juliet she's working on, 42 Seconds of Happiness. She also produced Teal Shear's second season of My Gimpy Life as well. So she's been a very busybody. She has way more credits than that, but those are the most recent ones. Let us know a little bit of what into producing. Like, what is it? What is it about producing that caught you? Why do you like to do it?
I like to produce, well, a lot of the times, what it ended up being was that, I'm the type of person, that likes to kind of organize people and bring them together and make things happen. And so whether it's socializing and hanging out with a group of friends or a film project or a project of any sort, if someone has an idea and I'm excited about it, my reaction is, okay, let's do it now. And this, and if nobody else is moving, then I'm the one moving us forward. So, there was, quite a few camping trips a while back that a bunch of my friends and I all went on, and I'm the one with like the spreadsheets and like organizing things and making sure that everyone has, who's bringing food, who's bringing flashlights, who's bringing batteries, who has firewood. That's just the type of person I am. So for me, when I find a script that I really like, the only thing I know to do is to say, okay, how do we make it happen? And that's really what I've always done. I also like to do other things that maybe implement or go along with producing. I like to come up with stories. I like to work on the creative side of things, but I always find myself mainly taking over and organizing and getting things off the ground. So it's kind of what I fell into. I like to be organized. I like to pull together really good creative people, and I want to see those stories that are exciting to me get made.
Excellent. No, thank you very much. What was your first project? What was the first thing you actually produced?
Well, I guess, if we're talking first thing in LA, as opposed to first thing ever, I've been... Say that again?
Like numero uno, like what was the first production you produced? New Jersey is, if that was where it started. What was the first thing that Allison Vanore produced?
Oh God, I don't even know. I used to make things when I was little with my sisters. My parents always had cameras, always had video cameras, and so we were making movies when we were little. We would make our babysitters play. Like, I would cast my babysitters in roles, and I would shoot, direct, and act in, and then make my sisters and babysitters play roles in my movies. So. And it was always, I didn't really know what I was doing, obviously, so I was always like talking them and directing them from behind the camera, and of course we didn't have any post-production facilities, so you always hear, Allison bossing people around from the camera. So it was always fun, but and then, it was pretty early on, it was always something I wanted to do, so when it came time to look into colleges, no one was surprised when I said I wanted to go to film school. They were like, okay, well, that makes sense. And so, shot a bunch of stuff in school, project in school, and produced a couple others, and worked as a first AD on a couple. And ever since I left Arizona in school, I've been producing things ever since in LA. So, my first... I don't even remember what my first LA production is. I don't know. I've always been making movies and series since I can remember.
Very cool. For me, I was in a similar path. It came down to a buddy of mine, Jeff Arwady, and I did Star Trek parodies at each other's houses when we were in high school, when we were kids. Mm-hmm. And he actually had at the time, video technology and editing has come so far. At the time, it was this very expensive, like, specialized computer card in order for him to edit is what he had. So he had the camera on that, and then together we would write these awesomely bad Star Trek parodies. Like, these things were sweet. I collected all the little toy ships from Playmates. So we had those as ships, and we just told these awesomely bad adventures. I love those things. And it seems to be like
Nice.
that's a lot of where it's. Yeah, it's a lot of those like homemade productions that are always filled with the best kind of wackiness. The kind of stuff you can only get away with because you're precocious kids. If you know what I mean. Oh, it seemed to have broken up a bit.
Yeah,
Oh, there.
totally. I think we were, yeah, there.
Yep, still here. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna shot when I was in high school was my best friend at the time, and we decided to reenact parts of Dante for a school project, and it was just the weirdest stuff ever, and we thought it was the most hilarious thing, and we played it in school, and we laughed through the entire thing, and everyone just sat there horrified.
So okay, so what you're saying it was the wackiest circles of hell ever, basically.
Yeah, it was really weird. We had, we did whichever circle of hell we were doing that I remember was, like frozen faces and heads and ice and all this weird stuff with shadows and what I was just really bizarre, but we got a kick out of it.
Yeah, little did you know that circles of hell would actually be elevators with music later on in our lives. Oh, so
Yes.
brutal, so brutal. All right, so at this point, let's talk a little bit about Apotheosis.
Mhm.
Apotheosis, for those who haven't seen the campaign page yet, comes down to it's an ensemble drama about the aftermath of two U.S. government attempts to create superhuman beings. They tried once in 1966. It failed miserably in the shadow of the Cold War. They would try again in 2000 with advances in medical technology and science, and that just went down the toilet again for different reasons, but just as tragic. The biggest thing about Apotheosis is I'm trying to tell a comic book story that isn't relying on cosplay and VFX and fight scenes as the only reasons to watch it. If you want to see that kind of stuff, it's available all over the place. You could find 100,000 examples in any given YouTube search. I just really want to try to bring something different to the table in telling those kind of stories. And this is the sort of method that I want to try to pull it together with. There's a lot of challenges involved with that. That's why I went to someone as experienced as Allison, because I need someone, especially for the LA ecosystem, as a Detroit producer who'd done Vampirism Bites for 4 years. I do not have the audacity or the idiocy to go bull charging into LA and just acting like I know how the ecosystem works. So Allison has experience with the Los Angeles filmmaking ecosystem, and instead of just stumbling around like a moron in LA, crappily trying to work the logistics of it, I wanted to get someone experienced, and that's why I approached Allison Vanore. If you can, Allie, this is the point where, what is it about the project that made you say, yeah, you know what, if we can get this together, I'd like to produce this. And full disclosure, this is not
Well,
the part where I want anyone to like kiss my ass and sycophant. This isn't sycophant time. It's please, I'll just start crying and self-loathing more than ever. But just let people know why. Why did you say yes? I actually haven't really asked this myself. Why did you?
Well, I mean, for me, it's, just like you were saying, it's a chance to do something different that's not done all the time. And, for me, while I love those big blockbuster, crazy action, filled visual effects shows and movies, I really do I love drama, I love characters, I love, smart writing, and so that's what I was looking forward to doing. And then on top of it all, we pulled together a pretty cool team. I mean, you did an awesome job going out to people that that I love and admire. So I'm looking forward to working, with all of those people, LA and Michigan. Some of them I've worked with before, and some of them I haven't, but I've known in the web series world. So it's just, it's a big fun cast, and team of people that are going to be saying some really smart words, and I'm excited that it all came together, and we're here in a place where we can be talking about it and hopefully get people to come on board and help support us by donating or sharing the link, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun to shoot, and to be able to do something in two different places and kind of merge these two worlds. I'm always up for something new and exciting, so that's what this is to me.
Phew, all right, good. I was just waiting for well, I'm doing it because I lost a bet with my husband and I had no choice, and so I guess good. I'm glad to see I avoided that. Who are we kidding?
No, if I lost a bet with Rob, I'd be stuck eating like 25 tacos.
False.
Something
there
crazy.
Would be no tacos left. There would be no tacos left for you to eat. Let's not lie about that. The punishment is to eat your tacos in front of you would be his punishment.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, exactly, and tease us all.
Now, one of the big challenges with this campaign really is quite blunt and it's quite simple. So far, right now, we're at about $830. We've had about 15 donors. The target is $25,000. In 22 or 23 days, I don't have the page right in front of me right now. It's a big target, and if I'm going to be completely honest with the challenges involved, I didn't co-found Rocket Jump. I'm not the co-founder of Geek and Sundry. I'm not the co-founder of Rooster Teeth. And in the internet entertainment landscape, they can drive a lot of momentum based off reputations they built. It's nothing like they didn't just wake up on a Tuesday morning and decide, gosh, I'm going to be friggin' awesome today. They all came from different areas and built these things up. But the biggest challenge is most people watching this probably won't know what Tyghtrope is. You don't know what it is. You don't know who I am. Part of the reason I went with experienced people like Allison Vanore, members of our cast that you'll recognize more on the LA side, Yuri Lowenthal, Maxwell Glick, Rob Paget, Tanya Einen, Steve Lekowitz, David Nett. So some of the reason that I went with a lot of those LA actors is because, well, first of all, I was nervous as shit showing them the script because I was waiting for them to say it was crap. I don't know who paid them off, but they did not say that it was crap. It was good. They joined along with the cast. And these cast members are confirmed. If we can get this campaign to succeed, these actors are ready to roll and bring this stuff to life. This wasn't like, here's who I wish would pop up cast, or here's who I'd like to go and ask. We did a long process inviting some cast members and doing auditions for others to sort of bring all this together. But the biggest challenge for me is getting this out there. And part of that is trying to establish a reputation to where, I'm not taking a bag with a $sign on it and a, robber's mask and laughingly dancing away if we can succeed with this. This is a SAG-AFTRA union production. I want to pay everyone from top to bottom. I want to get a paycheck to everyone. It's a new media production, so with actors I'll be able to pay them less than the normal SAG minimums, but I want to pay them something. I want to pay our boom guy, our camera operators. I want to pay Allison, the people that are making us food. If there's anyone who doesn't get paid from this production, the only person whose pay gets cut is this guy, which is fine because nobody likes this guy anyway, so it's all right. You don't have to worry about that.
That's not true. Don't lie.
Well, that's very kind of you. The check is in the mail. But the biggest challenge, which I'm fully able to admit, the biggest challenge is getting people to take notice. Of the donors that we have and the number of times the campaign video has been played, it's like a 1-to-4 ratio. Every fourth person, roughly, that's slightly more than that. It's like 4.15 or something. But almost every fourth person that's watched this video has donated. So if we can get this to scale upwards and we can get more people to sort of look at it, I think we have a real shot. But, that's the biggest challenge for bringing this production to life, and that's one of the risks. Kickstarter is all or nothing, folks. It either happens or it doesn't. This is no flex funding, any of that kind of stuff. It's not, we can do it if I have half the money. I can't do this out of my pocket. We get the full way or we go none of the way. And this window of opportunity with this cast, with this crew, with Allison, this window of opportunity fades away. And this goes back to being a file on a hard drive. And that's the risk I'm taking because that's how confident I am in this story. Now, in talking about challenges, oh, go ahead.
I said it was sad. That would be very, very sad.
Yeah, it would be very sad. I mean, it's going to be disappointing, but it's the risk that I take. In this, in the internet landscape, it's difficult to get enough attention. You got to get, enough gravity, and that's why part of the campaign theme for this is asking people to be our lightning. I think this show's a lightning rod. I think it could succeed, marketing-wise, if the prologue does well. It's the exact kind of thing that internet networks are looking for. They're looking for something that's a little more quote-unquote TV-friendly. And this is a little more TV-friendly. I did that because I grew up on The West Wing. I grew up on MASH. I grew up on ER. My mom let me watch Hill Street Blues once in a while when I was a little kid, when there wasn't like too much violence and stuff going on in the episodes. But that was the sort of long-form dramatic series I was raised on, and so it kind of echoes. It echoes in the way that I like to present things. Like Aaron Sorkin is one of my heroes. My pantheon is like Larry Gelbart, Stephen Cannell, J.J. Abrams, Joss Whedon, and Aaron Sorkin. Like that's sort of my five-man pantheon of television creation, because they've all brought long-term stories for decades. I mean, gosh, MASH lasted 11 years. What dramatic series? Well, I think ER has been the only one that lasted that long and was still successful its entire way through. The finale of MASH, it took the Super Bowl from like 2 years ago to finally beat it, and it aired in 1981 when it came to viewership. That's insane. Like, just to think something in 1981 lasted until 2012, 2013. That's pretty damn brilliant. And so those are the guys that sort of inform me to want to do this kind of storytelling. Now, challenges is another huge theme about this. Tell us a little bit about, if you think over your experiences producing stuff, Allie, tell us about what your biggest challenge has been. What's been your toughest thing to overcome in being a producer? And this can be a specific project. Maybe it's a specific aspect of being a producer. But what has it been, Allie? What's been your toughest experience in doing what it is that you love?
The toughest thing is just trying to figure out how to make every penny count and count where it needs to count, and asking people to do things for you for less than what they're worth. But really, what's amazing, that kind of corresponds with that, what's amazing is the amount of people that you come across that do want to do these things and do want to work on these projects because they just have the passion for the stories and for telling the stories the way that we're telling them, and being a part of that new wave of entertainment. And so, the challenges are all, and it works out, and it's just amazing, the networking and the different things you get to be involved in. I think the hardest part is not having nothing to do at all. That's probably the hardest part, and I find myself jumping on lots of different projects, and then I feel like, oh my God, I don't have 36 hours in the day. I must be nuts, but I guess we must be nuts to be in this industry anyway, as it is, right? We torture ourselves because we just want to make this stuff. We want to continue telling stories and entertaining people, and also bringing up issues that maybe aren't talked about, and we feel the need to tell these stories, and so it's all worth it.
Now, speaking of that landscape, how do you see it right now? Are we in a point yet where we're able to start telling, more complicated stories? Because right now, a lot of the most popular stuff really sits on the comedy format, which I was, that's where I came from first, was Vampires and Bites, the comedy. I did the comedy format too. But a lot of the more popular stuff on the internet-only side seems to be comedy, whereas internet dramas only seem to do really well when Netflix pays a shit ton of money to Kevin Spacey, and then turns around and starts going from there. Is there a split to where, comedy is the internet's kingdom by itself, and drama is only going to be those sort of intermediate services? your Amazons, your Netflix, to an extent your Hulus, I would say, which was birthed by the three major networks. But is that divide? Am I just seeing that? Is that divide there, or is the internet-only side? Are we going to be able to tell more complex stories that aren't just super niche for an audience?
I think it's changing. I think over the past couple of years, I've seen a shift. I mean, I think certainly with short form content, comedy is still king. But I am seeing, content and looking for dramas. It's not growing as quickly as I think we'd all like it to go, but I think that, while we can look at Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and say, oh, but you're making bigger budget to groom our audiences and really them into the space, because people are no longer watching through traditional methods. And those are, while the younger generation is doing that, who really is watching these harder dramas and these kind of, intelligent stories? And it's the older generation at this point, right? So if they're now tuning into Netflix to watch House of Cards, that's exciting to me because they're figuring out a way to do that. And the technology is somewhat of a hurdle for that demographic. Though they're paving the way to this content that we're making and trying to make, and a lot of the distribution outlets out there are now looking for that. They want to replicate it, and they can't spend the money to pay a Kevin Spacey or someone certain. There's a certain amount of production cash that goes with that, but there are places looking for that content and in a longer format. So for me, I love television as well, and I would love to be making hour-long drama episodes. That's what I want to do. So now, and it's like if someone's going to turn around and say, can you make a 14 or 20 episodes or whatever of hour-long, I'd say hell yeah, I'm ready for it.
Thank you for offering me a long-term job doing an hour-long drama, but I'm just internet solely. I'm sorry, I'm just too cool for that. Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I can't.
You can do it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Zucker. I can't accept your job. I don't want it. I just want to stay here and struggle. It's fun. Here's a question that I have for you as a producer on the LA landscape. A lot of the biggest shows on the internet are using established television actors in most cases. Some of them have film, but most of them are television actors. And it feels to me like here's the actors that you and I know well from a lot of different internet shows that are very competent actors. And then there's, again, just like before, there's this sort of like valley, this valley of the shadow of no hiring. And then you go over here and it's like television actors only. Do you think we're going to be able to create shows that we're going to be able, like for me with Apotheosis, I didn't want to go for a TV actor in casting it. Yes, that could have gotten more notoriety for the show, potentially, but I really wanted to make a show where we show off the ability of actors that are in web television, that have been down here, that have been working on all sorts of stuff. And do you think eventually we're going to find a way to break through to where you don't have to go to the network sponsored this or the Netflix sponsored that for something to get... basically for something to break nationally? There's a lot of niche stuff, but even some of our biggest shows, you look at Felicia Day creating The Guild and the success she was able to attain. In the internet, it looks big. When you go on to shows like she appeared on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, she was like the second or third guest. There's still a long ways to go before we can get there. Do you think we're going to be able to get there at some point, Or is it going to be like, oh, well, the internet has to be the triple A, and you only get to the major leagues when you sign with Trigger Street and get onto Netflix? What do you think about that?
I mean, I certainly think. I mean, I think, yes, there's a different kind of level of celebrity when you're talking about content for the web versus content for television or film. But we see crossover happening all the time. And yeah, we may look at Felicia and say, oh, she's the top celebrity in this world. But you also have to look at the demographic for her show and her shows is very different than the people that are watching some of those other shows on television. And not to say that they aren't there too or at this point, but she has a very specific network and audience and fan base, and they love her on the web. And so, I don't think there's anything wrong with, having that celebrity status just on the web, but I do think that there is crossover. I think it's the reality of just the way entertainment industry works is that, if you have somebody, you just automatically have that built-in cachet, that built-in audience, that's ever going to go away. It's something that has existed for, hundreds and thousands of years. If you're talking about theater, if you're talking about TV or movies or now the web, they're recognizable names. That's what people know. You may say, well, I've never heard of this show, but David Nett is in it, and if they know who David Nett is, then they're going to be interested. So I don't think we're ever going to get away from that, but I do think that there's certainly room for shows to make big waves and get a lot of notoriety and to raise up the actors that are doing content here on the web, and they can reach new heights with that. Why I don't see any reason why not.
Sure. Now, do you think there's going to be some point where we're going to be able to get a show on this level to sort of break that glass? Do you think it's possible to where it'll become a nationally recognized show and it doesn't have to rely on this network as its marketing anchor or this service as its marketing anchor? There's a lot of, YouTube, the rise of the MCN is a very relatively recent phenomenon. The multi-channel network, and we'd be seeing all sorts of crazy deals as old media sort of hoses them up, sweeps them up to add to their portfolios. But do you think that there's a potential there for a web TV project created from our group of creators, and that's from top to bottom? Do you think there's potential there for something to break through, to truly break through into a national consciousness? Or do you think it's going to rely on those already established national sort of networks and entities in order to do that?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think that the way, to get national notoriety is to have lots and lots of people watching, right? So, either you have to have something that really hits at the right time, the right place, with the right type of story, for it to kind of go viral, and then from there what's going to end up happening is those bigger networks and those kind of old school entertainment companies are going to try to scoop them up, right? Because really when it comes down to it, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the numbers, they're looking for the advertising dollars, and really that's how we monetize what we're doing. So we kind of have to look at, what do we really want? Do we want to stay on the web? Do we want to continue making this? Do we want to be able to monetize it? At the moment, there's very few ways to monetize it, and most of those ways are from traditional ways of selling advertising. Either, it's subscribers or it's advertising. Cable's the same way. We pay monthly subscriptions to our cable networks, and we see commercials, right? So, I mean, it's going to be hard for us to completely start from scratch and have build a completely new structure and way of making money around this type of media. But to go back to your question, I do see potential. I mean, I'm a very optimistic person, so of course I'm going to say, yes, of course, we could, I see it, it could totally happen. But I think, but I think these things kind of go hand in hand. We can't pretend like traditional media doesn't exist. And there's a reason why. Number one, there's a reason why it worked for so long, and number two, there's a reason why it's failing right now. So I think it's a really interesting time to try to figure out, okay, how do we shift the landscape a little bit? And luckily for for us, technology is on our side, and we're able to really create a somewhat different landscape moving forward, and I think that's what's exciting. I mean, when you've got people like Spielberg getting up there and all these, legendary producers and creators saying, the cinema is dead and the web is taking over, and all of these, these things are new. I mean, they're right. They're totally right, and we're all together trying to figure out the way that this is going to work, and the way that what the future is going to look like for storytelling and consuming media. So,
what a lot of people don't know is that Steven Spielberg actually has always preferred television as a storytelling medium because he can tell longer stories than feature-length films. Films are what his bread and butter was, and that's where he established his reputation. But from the very beginning, he loved the idea of doing television. He did, what was it, Amazing Stories, I think, was his television series. But he did that because he loved TV, and seeing him come back is great because he's definitely going to be the kind of guy with the sort of gravity to push things along, because they're going to listen to Spielberg. It's not like, what have you done? It's like, well, yeah, look at all the crap that he's done. Shut up. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Well, and that's what's great about a lot of those. If we look at those legendary producers and creators, they're all obsessed with technology and obsessed with being on the cutting edge. So while they've been around for a long time, they are very much paying attention to what is happening right now and what's happening in the future. And lucky for us, they have that ability to get out there and say these things, and people do listen. And so maybe somebody who wasn't paying attention to what was going on the web and kind of going their merry way, now they're kind of paying attention. And it all happened around the same time that web series. And while I'm sure you'll cringe at the idea of me saying that Orange is the New Black or
those are web
series is a web series.
They
are right.
No.
And now people are paying attention. Now it's not so removed from reality for a lot of people. And so to me, I welcome the merging of those things, but I also welcome the influx of money into our budgets too, because I think there's some really amazing stories being told on the web that deserve to be out there, and I think there is an audience. But the hardest thing for us is we're not a network. We're not we don't have a giant marketing department. We don't have tons of advertising dollars behind us. So not only are we being filmmakers and creators and producers, but we're also trying to market our material out there, which is a whole other job and department in itself. And that's the biggest challenge, really, when you're talking about being a creator and putting a show out there, is we're not just doing our job, we're doing a million other jobs, and it's exhausting and difficult to do on our own.
Yeah, we can't get a 10, 15 person staff to be able to put together some of the logistics. I absolutely understand that. When it comes to the marketing aspect, do you think that's one of our biggest challenges right now, is just finding out how to get that awareness for all our different projects?
Totally. I mean, that's really difficult. And if you look at the people who are doing well, and they have tons of subscribers on their channel and they get tons and tons of views, I mean, that's years and years of work building an audience usually for a very specific type of audience, a very specific demographic. So when you're trying to do content that's maybe for a broader audience or for a different demographic, that's not easy. That's not an overnight thing. This is something that you have to build over time, and it's something you have to figure out how to sustain that. How do we sustain working full time, making our content and marketing our content, especially if we're not making very much money, right? So maybe we have to have other jobs that are paying the bills, and that's years and years of work. So some people have done amazingly with that, but it's quite an effort.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think one of the things, this has been spoken about a lot right now, especially in the past couple of years in the web TV space, but it comes down to the value of your work versus working for free, which has been a very interesting debate. When I did Vampirism Bites in my position, I got, meals and credits and, DVDs and stuff like that because that's all I could do. And what I noticed was it's done so much that it wasn't even a backlash, but there's a sort of attitude towards it to where it's just like if that's what you're doing, it's not that it's vilified, but it's looked down upon. And it's really tough for me because in my socioeconomic background, I'm not being a cheapskate. That's what I'm capable of doing. I would love to do more. One of the big things with Apotheosis is I want to cut paychecks to people. And I want to walk around with my chest puffed up and doing a sweet pimp strut with a box full of payroll checks, handing out to every actor on set. That's what I want. That's what I want badly for my next production. That's how. I mean, technically, the instant you make a single dollar, you're technically a professional. But for me, I'm going to feel like I've arrived in a state of being professional at this craft when I can hand Allison her paycheck and be like, yeah, here's help to pay your rent and your bills in exchange for working for me, which is what it's all about. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the value of work versus, making those negotiations and cutting those deals with people to sort of help you out working for less, or in some cases, working for free on certain things? Where do you go? Where do you fall on that?
Well, at this point, I feel like it's very hard for me to ask people to be involved for free. It just, at a certain point, I just can't, no one owes me anything. And even if they say they do, they don't owe me, working for free on something. So for me, I feel like I'm long past the days of being able to ask people to do things for free, if it's beyond, a little favor here and there. But the thing is, too, what I find is, there are some people out there that are also looking to do what we're doing, and that is get their stories out there, maybe do something different. Maybe it's something that they've never done before. They don't have it on their reel. Maybe it's someone that they are interested in working with. So there are people who do benefit from working on certain projects. And so, of course, if that's the case, then great. But, there's nothing fun about having a crew of people who don't want to be there and feel like they're being taken advantage of. Like, I just cannot do that. I can't ask people to work 12 hours on set day after day if they don't want to be there. There's, no one wins in that situation. And so, it's amazing when you get groups of people who all have a common interest and desire to be a part of something, and that's awesome. And if that's the case, then let's go out and make something. But when it comes down to it, we're all in this business to create, but also to survive. And there's certain things that we have to do. I need to be able to afford my cigars and martinis. Yeah. So that's going to cost a couple bucks.
Yeah, candy, cigarettes, and Subway sandwiches. I know. I feel that pain. I know that feel, Allison. I know that feel.
Wow.
All right, now, end the night here. Let's talk about your projects a little bit. Let's talk about some of the other stuff you're doing. What would you say is Producing Juliet probably your most current project right now?
Oh, goodness. Well, it depends on what stage we're talking about. I mean, in terms of web series, yes, that's currently happening right now. We have 2 more episodes that are going to finish out season 1 that'll be airing over the next month. So I'm really excited about that. Besides that, I've got a handful of feature films that are in various stages of production, mostly in post-production. I've got, I think, 3 at the moment in post-production. So just always lots of things going on, and I'm looking forward to having more episodes of podcast Pilar in the World of Dogs coming up here in the next couple of months. So, yeah, busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Do you know offhand we'll put the link down here as well, but do you know offhand where people can see Producing Juliet as it's released? Is that the YouTube channel name?
Yeah, well, it's not the YouTube channel name, but if you go to producingjuliet.com, you'll be able to find all the episodes. the channel on YouTube is the WPC, which stands for the Ward Picture Company. So the WPC is the channel on YouTube, but you could, you'll find information if you go to my YouTube channel. I link to it all the time. It's around. If you Google Producing Juliet, it'll come up. So, but yeah, I appreciate anyone checking it out. The full first season will be up in the next couple weeks. So check it out.
Very cool. Do you know if you're going to be making more yet, or you're not sure at this point?
The goal is, yes, to make more. We're currently in talks about how to make season 2 happen. So, I'm excited to have that, move forward. We've got a lot of ideas. Tina has a lot of ideas about where to take it, and so yeah, we're definitely pushing ahead as much as we can.
Excellent. Very cool to hear. What feature would you say is closest to being released at this point?
Well, Love and the Time of Monsters is going to be released in the near future. So I would say in the new year. In 2015, very early on, Love and the Time of Monsters will be released domestically. So that'll be exciting to finally have that out in the world. Beyond that, the other features that I'm in post on right now will be doing the festival circuit next year. So those will be probably coming out the following year, but just depending on what the festival reaction is. I've got a feature film called Daddy that we're finishing up over the next month, so that'll be the next one behind Love of the Time of Monsters.
Very cool, very cool. Looking forward to those. We'll put up information on links and such as those get closer. We'll definitely put the Producing Juliet link down in the comments section. Can you let us know a little bit of what Producing Juliet is about for those who are uninitiated?
Yeah, well, I mean, Producing Juliet is about people and their relationships with each other, and it takes place with a group of people who are part of a theater company and all the drama that happens on stage and off stage. So check it out, and starring some web series veteran actors like Rachel Hip Flores, and then some newbies like Alicia Spielman and Jenny Grace. So and many more. It's an ensemble cast, and they're all amazing. So I'm really excited to be a part of all of that, and to see how all their characters are growing and what's happening with them in the story.
Nice. Like, can you hold on one bit here? I got to pick up the names you. Yeah, boom. I like it. Some good name dropping there. So yeah, we'll have that down in the comments. To end up this night, Miss Allison, let me know, as a producer, if someone else wanted to get into the area of work that you do, off the top of your head, what would be your personal three points of interest that you would want them to sort of be aware of when they go into the world of producing?
I feel like, what it comes down to is, number one, I mean, if these are tips on how to, what my advice to a producer would be to, respect people and treat them fairly. Make sure that you put a real budget in place and a real schedule in place so that you are setting yourself up for success, because really, most projects are doomed before they even begin because you just don't know what you need. So find somebody who can help you put together a list of things that are going to be necessary to make it happen. You'll just be way more prepared, and people will respect you for it if you think of the little things. And then the last thing is, make sure you feed people well. If you have really amazing food, then all else is forgiven.
All right, so in other words, candy, cigarettes, and Subway sandwiches are only for me, and I get better stuff for everyone else. Beluga caviar for them, candy, cigarettes, and Subway clubs for me. All right, that's great. Well,
I put my order for lobster in right now.
We'll get those super rare, like 1 in 2 million blue lobsters just for you.
Perfect. I love it.
All right, well, thank you very much, Allison, for joining us today.
Yep, perfect. Thank you for having me. Let's raise some money on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Just to give you guys a rundown on what's going on, we are 22 days out from the end of this campaign. This show is a lightning rod, and we need you to be our lightning. We are Marty McFly driving the DeLorean past the clock tower with that wire waiting and our hook ready to go. And we need you guys to help us strike when we pass that clock tower, which will be Thursday at midnight for Pacific time, 3 a.m. Eastern time, on Thursday, September 19th. If this doesn't happen, the carriage turns back into a pumpkin. That's it. It is all or nothing. And I am confident enough in the story that if you'll join us, you'll come along with us on this and help bring this alive. I guarantee you that we will blow your socks off with the story that we want to tell. This is the first episode of Talking the Tightrope. We will definitely see Allison again. Now, this project will continue whether the series Apotheosis goes on or not. I want to be able to talk with people in this industry, especially at our level, and I want to do a little more Charlie Rose mixed with Charlie Bit My Finger. I want to try to get a little more in depth with the kind of issues and things that we face at this level. We'll promote projects, but let's have a conversation about the things that are difficult, because that's the stuff that stops us and curtails us from creating art. And if we have frank, open discussions about these kind of things, and we talk about what bothers us and what's hard and what's difficult, maybe we can learn from each other and we can sort of break those barriers. For this particular week, today it is August 27th technically on the East Coast, still the 26th on the West. We will be having another show on Thursday. There's an East and West Coast show. The East Coast show at 8 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard, will be with Mr. Michael Lopatron, who plays Kevin Murrow for the Detroit side. And then at 11 p.m. East, 8 p.m. West, we'll have Renee Daw, who plays one of our spies, Miss Emily Byrne. Those will both be live hangouts, and we'll have more information there. Again, I want to thank my guest, Allison Vanore, who is my LA General. I will be buying her epaulets and a shaker hat with military pips, and she will wear it while walking around on set. She can only do it if you help us bring this alive. We have a lightning rod. We need a spark. Please be our lightning. We'll have annotations and links to the campaign, the website letting you know what's going on, and we'll also have a new teaser video this week to give you a little more information on the show. Otherwise, I am James Fernandez. This is Talking the Tightrope. Thank you so much for coming along. See you in 2 days.